Hello everybody, welcome to a quick tutorial. I thought today we can just go through pivot points, something which is used very often in 3D modeling and a lot in my videos. If you watch some of my videos, you'll know I fly through at double the speed, so it's not always clear and visible what I actually do with the pivot points. So I thought we'd just do a quick tutorial just to discuss for those who are not aware of how it works. If you press the period key, you have the pivot point here, and we have 6 different options. We're not going to cover maybe all of them. We can see how far we get. So if we just say straight off the bat, we have a cube and the pivot point and the 3D cursor is in the middle here. If you were to rotate, and we're on medium point up here, you can see that we are rotating around the medium point. So if we were to, for example, move the medium point, we can say move the cursor here and then set origin to 3D cursor. This is now the medium point. You could also, if we were to back up and keep the medium point here, the next option is active element. So now, for example, if you select everything, the last thing you select, you'll see a white dot, and this is the active element, something also good to know. So if we were to rotate now around the active element, you can see we're rotating around the white dot. If we put the active element up here or over here, you could even you can choose any geometry, so then you can essentially rotate around any active element you choose. 3D cursor, if we reset the 3D cursor to selected. So now if we go into edit mode, so if we move the hole in object mode, you can see the center object is, the origin is coming with us. But if we go into edit mode, you can see the origin is still here. So if we were to go around the medium point, we're moving around the medium point here, but we could also choose to move cursor to selected, move your cursor, and now we're going around the cursor. Or you can choose up here, choose active element, and now you're rotating around. So you can see how fluid you can be. We have now 3 different points. So we have the origin here, which you can rotate around. We have the 3D cursor here, which you can rotate around, and you have whichever active element to rotate around. So this is basically the idea of pivot points, and it's something which you should be using all the time in your 3D modeling to be able to be very fluid to what you want to do. So and this is not just connected to rotating objects or extruding objects. If we were, for instance, we can choose 3D cursor as the pivot point. If we for example, we can scale this down a little bit. So again, this is a good example. If we were to scale to the active element, when we're scaling now, you can see everything's going into the active element, and this is something I use quite a lot often also. Say for instance you have a tower and you want to scale the tower, but you want to keep the top at the right point, or more likely the bottom at the same point. I can do an example here. scale to the median point. So say you have a pyramid here and you think, okay, you have your ground plane and you want everything to scale. Right now we're scaling into the middle, and that will ultimately mean that your ground plane will be well below because you're scaling into a central point. But if you moved your cursor here and then scale to the cursor, see now you're scaling down. Or if you chose up here, active element, now you're scaling up. So this also, be aware, scaling also is affected by your pivot point. So now if we were going to try a spin, we can use the 3D cursor as a pivot point, and we use a spin. Now you can see that we're spinning around the 3D cursor, and we're also scaling to the 3D cursor. If you choose now individual origins, so now you can see if we were to scale to the median point, everything is scaling into the origin point here. But say you have an array here with loaded objects and you want to scale them, you can use the Alt S scale, but if we're just going to keep to the theme of this and use individual origins, now you can see that we're scaling to the individual points of these objects. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you get a grasp of what I was trying to show you here. It's not so advanced really when you know the tools, but it's something that you need to use continually when you model. There's not a single modeling project where it's not been one of the most important things I've done. Even as I said, if you're using array, if you're just trying to create curves, you know, it's everywhere, and it's something you really need to be aware of. And I expect that if you've been modeling for a while, you're more than aware of this. But if you're a beginner and you know you're watching some of my videos and you're seeing me fly through and not really aware of some of the stuff which is going on, then it's good for you to know. When I make my videos, I don't really tailor it so much to beginners, I guess. When I started out in Blender, I kind of jumped into tutorials and tried to just watch people and try and see how people built things, and you kind of pick up on the shortcuts and the building methods. You will always be able to learn the tools eventually, but I think generally how you build stuff, how you go about completing a task is the interesting thing. Everybody does it in a different way, I guess. So if you do want to find a tutorial on just how to use Blender in general, then there's plenty out there. But obviously everyone is welcome to follow on with my tutorials if they want to see just how I build things. So yeah, thank you, and I'll catch you next time.